It's just fabulous to see a full house tonight and so many new faces. I'm just absolutely thrilled. For those of you who I haven't met yet, I'm Vianne Chernock. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Marin. Yay. It says here in the program that I'm allocated about 10 minutes to give you a State of the League update. So, how was your summer? Floods, hurricanes, heat waves, drought, earthquakes, fires, war, terrorists, political crisis, housing crisis, transportation crisis, healthcare crisis, immigration crisis, voting crisis. All I can say is yikes. It would be very easy, in light of all this, to fall victim to fear, anger, anxiety, hatred. But we're the League. We don't do that stuff. Are you anxious about climate change? Consider this. The California League of Women Voters has crafted a climate change action policy and prepared a climate change toolkit for use by local leagues. And our climate change committee will be looking at that. There's a flyer here in your meeting of the climate change committee, though this is the membership meeting, sorry. Climate change committee meets the first Wednesday of the month. In the face of Harvey and Irma and Maria, thousands of first responders from all over the country converged on the storm sites and started the massive job of humanitarian recovery together. Marin County Climate Action will host Paul Hawken and other climate change experts at the Marin Showcase Theater on Tuesday, October 3rd. Mr. Hawken is a Marin resident and editor of Drawdown, the most comprehensive plan ever proposed to reverse global warming. Yes, I said reverse global warming. How many of you have seen, own, or have started reading the book? Fabulous. Are you angry about politics? The League of Women Voters promotes an open governmental system that is representative, accountable, and responsive. The California legislature last week passed, Greg, AB 249, the California Disclose Act, which requires political campaign ads to disclose major sources of campaign funding. And this after a 20-year battle to get that done. Voters in Marin County, yes, Greg, you worked hard on that. Voters in Marin County are not generally suppressed. City and town councils throughout Marin are holding free and open elections this November, and the League is hosting or participating in 7 candidate debates open to the public all over the county. Are you distressed about homelessness and the housing crisis? Well, the League of Women Voters supports policies to provide a decent home and a suitable living environment for every American family. The California legislature has just passed SB 2 and SB 35, both aimed at easing the affordable state housing crisis statewide. Marin's Housing Crisis Action Group has scheduled its launch party for October 4th, and if you're interested about that, talk to Linda Jackson. Are you frustrated by traffic congestion and other transportation problems? Well, the League of Women Voters of California supports a transportation system that serves all segments of the population and minimizes harmful effects on the environment. The California legislature recently passed and has sent to Governor Brown's office for signature SB 595, which will place Regional Measure 3 on the ballot next year. This proposal would provide $4.4 billion, that's with a B, dollars in toll revenues for major highway construction projects around the Bay. The League has just sent a letter of support for this ballot measure to be signed, and I understand Marin County is looking to get maybe $500 million. TAM is also considering, TAM, Transportation Authority of Marin, is also considering a renewal of the Measure A sales tax, which you're all familiar with and are paying on. I'm proud to tell you that 7 of the expenditure plan 24-person advisory committee, along with the president of the TAM board, are all members of the League of Women Voters of Marin. Are you concerned about health care? The League of Women Voters promotes a health care system that provides access to a basic level of quality care for all U.S. residents and controls health care costs. Now, when Senator Bernie Sanders introduced Senate Bill 1804, the Medicare for All Act of 2017, last week with a new number for the umpteenth time, he this time announced that 17 senators and a majority of the House Democratic caucus have signed on. That's new. Chances of passage are still slim, but it does demonstrate increased support from Congress for another healthcare solution. Are you worried about our undocumented immigrant neighbors? You're all here for that tonight. Well, the League of Women Voters support, these are our position quotes, by the way. The League of Women Voters supports provision for unauthorized immigrants already in the country to earn legal status. Now, you know the California legislature has just passed SB 54, making California a sanctuary state. And our own Congressman Jared Huffman introduced a private bill in Washington, D.C. last week to release detained immigrant Hugo Mejia, who's a resident of San Rafael. And if you read the IJ and want to know more about Hugo, read the Marin voice that Linda Jackson got in today. Fabulous. And we'll be talking more about immigration in a few minutes. But the League is also considering another half dozen topics I want to tell you about. Charter schools, gun safety, human trafficking, drug and alcohol abuse, post-employment benefits, pretrial assessment, and bail reform, among others. So how do we manage to pay attention to all of this without going nuts? Well, first, we have people. The League currently has 130 active paid members. Oh, wait, you say, if you're a member. This is way down from the 218 we mentioned a month ago. Well, we're right in the middle of dues renewal time, and we're still waiting for almost 90 casual members whose renewal notices have ended up at the bottom of the to-do list. Might you be one of these? Back at the registration table, we have extra renewal forms, and we will be happy to take your check tonight if you haven't yet renewed. Or if you're a visitor and you would like to join us, there are applications on the table as well. In the last 8 months, since the November 2016 election, we've gained a whopping 38 members. But while we love even those who pay their dues and then do nothing else, our greatest joy is with the 20 or so who have attended meetings, volunteered for special tasks, and even taken on some major administrative positions. Wait. What's an administrative position? Don't we just have program committee meetings, educate and advocate for chosen topics? Well, no. And this is our second strength. We spend hours and hours and hours keeping the office organized, opening mail, answering the phone, emptying the trash, paying bills, and preparing financial reports to keep us fiscally solvent, handling our member management system, which you all know affectionately as Wild Apricot, so every member has instant access to our current up-to-date member directory. We stay on top of our legal responsibilities. Our bylaws, policies, and procedures are currently being revised and will be ready in time for the annual meeting next June. Maintaining our communication system, including the voter, e-blasts, website, Facebook, and outreach materials. At your chair, you have our brand new mini brochure and bookmark. Take a look. Released. The bookmark's been out for about a month. The brochures, this is the first time you're seeing them. And they didn't produce themselves. So kudos to Ann Batman, the head of our communications committee, and Kiki Laporta, who designed these. And I have to tell you, this is not in my script, but I have to tell you, this beautiful picture, brochure and the bookmark, was taken by and given credit to one Emily Chernock, age 12. Favorite granddaughter. We plan and manage our major league events, the spring gala, annual meeting, summer grand jury reception, and the fall kickoff, and that's us right here. We also participate in the Marin Senior Fair, which is coming up next month, and we'll be asking for volunteers very soon. We're also starting our planning for the spring 2018 gala in just a few weeks. Did you know that, folks who are on the planning committee? We're going to start. And of course, there's our reason for being, voter service. In addition to all those candidate debates I mentioned a minute ago, we distribute registration forms to venues throughout the county under a contract with a Marin Registrar of Voters. And we're staffing tables at 2 or 3 public events during National Voter Registration Week, which starts next Monday. We could use a couple more volunteers, so see me if you want to sit at a table. The League is also represented on the County Election Advisory Committee, which watches election integrity, looks out for voter fraud, and is trying to figure out how to update our voting processes in Marin. And if that's not enough, here are a few more things we'd like to do if only we have the bandwidth. Reach out to underserved communities and get out the vote. Reach out to high schools, revitalize civics in the classroom, get out the vote. Get involved at state and national levels to fight voter suppression, which is rampant elsewhere, so they can get out the vote. Write more letters to our legislators, to the media. Update our website, add more social media tools, increase our interaction with other local leagues, the Bay Area League and the State League. We right now have a critical opening for a representative to the Bay Area League's North Network, which meets once a quarter in Oakland, and we need you to do that. I saw a quote in the IJ recently that really caught my attention. A high school sophomore here in Marin talking about the 9/11 terrorist attacks was quoted as saying, "I want to learn about when America was a free country. Now you hear about more government and it's more like a dictatorship." It gives me chills. What a frightening thought for our children and grandchildren. But wait, America is still a free country. In spite of our many flaws, we're still viewed through the lenses of equality, opportunity, peace, and the right to have a say in our own future. Do you recognize these words? We hold these truths to be self-evident. And we, the people of the United States. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, domestic tranquility, etc., etc., etc. In spite of what we might think about the political crises threatening to engulf us all, these words remain intact. I haven't seen a single thing about killing the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence. We do not need to be fearful or angry or anxious or hateful. We're the League. The League of Women Voters is dedicated to ensuring that all eligible voters, particularly, this is a quote, particularly those from traditionally underrepresented or underserved communities, including first-time voters, non-college youth, new citizens, minorities, the elderly, and low-income Americans, have the opportunity and the information to exercise their right to vote, end quote. Today, September 21st, has been the International Day of Peace. This holiday, established by the United Nations in 1981, seeks to strengthen the ideals of peace among all the world's inhabitants and urges all hostilities to stop worldwide. So how are we doing? But today, September 21st, is also Rosh Hashanah, the new Jewish New Year, with apologies to those who are not here tonight because they're at holiday. It's also the Islamic New Year, and it's also in the Christian tradition, the feast day of St. Matthew, one of Jesus' disciples. So whatever our religious tradition, or no religious tradition, it's really hard to celebrate holidays or holy days, or any days for that matter, when we're fighting with each other. So seek peace, stay calm, and carry on. Let go of hate, anger, and fear. Just pick a cause or two and get on board. And that concludes my State of the League remarks. And now it's time to honor our Community Services Award recipient. If you live anywhere in Marin County, but particularly if you live in Novato, you know the name Deet. Probably about 3 weeks after Deet passed, the board sat down and said, oh, of course, we have to honor Deet. Dietrich Stroh as our Community Service Award recipient. And I'm really, really delighted to share with you that his widow, Donna, is here tonight to accept this award. So, Donna, if you would pop up here. I have to tell you, Donna and Deet have been neighbors of ours for 30, 40, 7, but Deet's lived down the road for years and years and years and years, and I remember days when we were fighting over trying to get the road paved, and he managed to get it halfway, and that was great. There is an obit on the registration table for Deet, so that you can see all the various and sundry things he did. We who moved to Novato in the 70s knew him as Mr. Water, because he brought the pipe across the Richmond Bridge during the big drought in 1970-something.
Governor Brown still calls him the Waterman.
The Waterman. But that's not all he has done, and at his passing, he was the president of the Golden Gate Bridge District Board of Directors. So in recognition of his leadership in Marin County as president of the Golden Gate Bridge District, past general manager of the Marin Municipal Water District, and positions with numerous public and private organizations throughout the county and across the state, and for his gracious and selfless dedication to his company, CS2 Strober Straw.
CSW Stuber Stroh.
Thank you. I know them well, I'm just tongue-tied. And his family, his friends, and the entire North Bay community, we are pleased to present this outstanding community Service Award posthumously to Dietrich Stroh, and this is for you.
Can I tell what the favorite thing on our street is, really? I'm going to guess.
Say whatever.
Okay, so Deet bought his own. The county wouldn't do it. Nobody would approve of it. And he bought his own slow squirrel crossing signs. You know, big ones, big yellows. And then we would go out and we'd knock on neighbors' doors and we'd say, let us put it on your street, on your house. And so we put slow squirrel crossing signs up and down the street.
And we see those every single day as we drive past the house. We have a perpetual plaque. If you've been in our league office, you know this. We're on our second plaque now, and you will see right down here the 2017 award to Dietrich Stroh. This will stay in our office, but you can take that one home. Anything else you want to say?
He's right next to Steve Kenzie. I always called Steve Kenzie his son. Steve Kenzie goes, wait, I'm going to do the math. No, biologically, it could happen. So that's why I used to tell him their age.
I saw Steve Kinsey at an event last evening, and the first thing he said to me was, I'm so sad I can't come to the kickoff. And he has renewed his membership with the league for another year.
Well, I'd be happy to share something if you don't mind. I know you guys have a tough schedule. Go ahead. You have a really tough schedule. I know you do. But so on the way here, my favorite, you don't know this, but the earthquake board did a similar thing right after Deet passed and had me come all the way out to Sacramento City Hall where they have their meetings. And I brought Deet's favorite cat, and I put it on the podium. And it just sat there and it rubbed its head on the microphone. It's a really trained cat. It's in my car right now. It's not hot today. She came, but before we came here, the cat and myself went over to Deet's at Valley Memorial where he's buried, and we made sure Deet had a happy hour before you all, because I brought some scotch and his favorite potato chips, and he had that with the cat and his favorite zinnias, red zinnias, before I came here. So I really appreciate you all. I just want to let you know he's with you, having happy hour with you, in spirit.
Thank you, Donna. Stick around with us. We have a really great program to present.
Okay, so go.
Yeah.
Sit down.
Sit. We are ahead of schedule, so this is great. You guys who are coming up to the table will have a little extra time. You won't have to crunch. The moderator for our program this evening is Linda Jackson, so without further ado, I'm going to turn the mic over to you.
Thank you so much, Vianne. Okay, looking good. Well, thank you. This is such an honor to be a moderator for this panel, because this panel these are the top dogs in Marin County on the issue of immigration today in the United States, in California, and in Marin. Now, the League of Women Voters has things called positions, which our president talked about. These are statements that are the result of a lot of study by local leagues. And there's a position on immigration. You mentioned a little bit out of it, but I want to read the first paragraph, the first page of it, the first sentence. The League of Women Voters believes that immigration policies should, 1, promote reunification of immediate families. 2, meet the economic, business, and employment needs of the United States. And 3, be responsive to those facing political persecution or humanitarian crises. There's a lot more in this position about all the other topics and nuances, but those 3 items are ones that we can hold dear to our American values for what we stand for. And they came after a year's worth of research by local leagues, approved at the national level. We have 4 fabulous speakers tonight, and the first one is someone who lives in West Marin. Can you please come up here? I'll introduce you. She is the co-founder for Abriendo Caminos, and she's the chair of the West Marin Collaborative. Come here. You're going to stand here. You're going to stand here and talk. And she works with immigrants in West Marin. What do they do? What do immigrants do in West Marin? They work in agriculture. They work in hospitality. They work in the care service sector. They're vital, integral parts of the community. And Maria Nigel is going to share with us what's happening in West Marin.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the time. Thank you. I first had a little bit of a flashback of my mother years ago speaking to the League of Women Voters in Kern County. She organized farm workers to create family child care homes in places like Arvin and Delano. And while I was inspired by the speech, thank you, that you gave to introduce your fall kickoff, I couldn't help but think of her and think of her work with immigrant communities. So I thank you for creating that connection for me tonight. I also want to say that when I was asked to do this, I was a little bit cautious. I have a co-founder to Abriendo Caminos. Her name is Socorro Romo, who I love very much, who works very hard and tirelessly. She is an ex-ranch worker. Her family had worked in the ranches for 30 years. She has some dental work and could not make it. So I'm going to do the best I can to really show you a little bit of what our life and work is out in West Marin with our immigrant communities. I first want to talk about fear. And I want to talk about fear, but I'm not only going to talk about fear, I'm also going to talk about hope. And we sense great fear, and I'm sure others here sense it as well. The immigrant community in West Marin senses great fear, and we feel it in the work that we do every day. I also, something that I forgot to put in my biography is that what pays the bills is my work with promotoras, which is mental health outreach workers who are Spanish speaking. And I only work part-time in that. But they also sense the fear with the communities that they're working with, family members, friends. It's out there. People are not accessing services that they could access. We're seeing a drop in our WIC enrollment. We're seeing a drop in food stamps. We're seeing a drop in mental health services being accessed. We're even seeing a drop in enrollment in schools. Now, are the correlations there for the school? Some people have some anecdotal evidence that people are willfully keeping their children away. And there's isolation out there. You can hide a little bit better than in other places. Those things are scary. Those things also last and have a lasting effect in communities and immigrant communities. So yes, deportation is a fear that many of the immigrants out in West Marin are feeling. But I'm also concerned about those who are left behind. Of the percentage of people who may not get deported, but are still being scapegoated and feeling that they are othered and don't belong, that has a tidal wave effect, a generational effect that we can't just take out of our communities. It's there. So through my social work lens, I'll put my social worker hat on, what can we do to make sure that the people that remain have the support that they need? I am so grateful to the Canal Alliance for the legal assistance. I'm so grateful for Nevada Youth Center and their involvement with our promotora work. But I'm asking you, I don't have all the answers. What can we do to make sure that the kid who's afraid to go to school, who can't sit still because he's nervous, anxious, that his parent won't be there when he gets home? What can we do for that child? You know, mental health services are a bit hard to come by, especially if you're undocumented. And there's a fight there that needs to be fought, because these families are in need of speaking to somebody about these anxieties, about these worries, about feeling othered, not belonging, less than. Those things resonate in families, but resonate with young children. And I have a bit of a bias. I have an early childhood research background, and so I have a bit of a bias, but we know that when we start there, that it resonates in all families. How can we make sure kids are learning? How can we make sure that people are getting the food they need? How can we make sure that people are getting the services that should be theirs? Those are the worries that I sit with as a social worker, as a co-founder of Abriendo Caminos, which is an immigrant empowerment group. And those are things that I like to throw back at the community to help me answer. I don't have the answers, but I think it's something that we are going to be sitting with for a very long time. Because like I said, you can't take the fear out once it's there. It takes a lot of time. So now I want to talk a little bit about the hope. And there is a lot of hope. West Marin is a unique community, they say, but I've seen it all across Marin County. People coming together and creating community firewalls to this hate, to this scapegoating that is going on, this othering. And I see that with our group standing together, a group across cultures that gets together to support our local immigrants. I see that with the work happening over the Hill, the Rapid Response Line, the Immigrant Safety Committees. These are places that give people hope and that know that their neighbors have their backs and are supporting them. Can't tell you how many clients of mine say, thank God I live in California. So I also want to thank our state legislators for what they are doing to help people feel safe in this time of fear. I'm so grateful for them not falling into the traps of scapegoating, of saying that our immigrant communities matter, that they're here to stay, and we are going to support them. That's powerful. That's hopeful that we can provide that for our community here in California. My hope is that other states can also fall in line and understand the impact, the positive impact that immigrant communities have. That beautiful cheese you were eating, who made that cheese? You know, the milk that you drink that nourishes your body, that nourishes your grandkids' body, your children's body, where did it come from? They come from the workers, many of them undocumented, who show up to work despite fear, who show up to make sure that their work is done and done well, and they follow the legacy of so many other hardworking immigrants that came before. And so I ask you tonight, my pledge as a social worker is to remember the human dignity of everyone in this country, and to truly, truly dedicate yourself and commit yourself to that dignity and to upholding that dignity for all. Thank you.
Omar? Okay. Now, on each table, while Omar's coming up, on each table there are cards. Can you hold up a card? Yeah, everybody has some cards on their table. Those are question cards. So if people at your table have a question, ask them to write it down. And then once you've written it down, hold up the card. We actually have 3 card collectors in the room, and they will come get your card. So, and at the end of the talks, we will have everybody come sit here. Maria, why don't you have a seat up here? And we'll be done before, and we'll be asking them questions. So this, our next speaker, we go way back because we share a common love for a beautiful little country called Ecuador. Once upon a time, I had a work visa to be there, working for the Peace Corps in Ecuador. When I met Omar, I found out he was from Ecuador, and I got so excited, and I know you thought, what? But he is an immigrant to the United States. Studied at Harvard and San Francisco State. And Omar is the executive director of the renowned Community Alliance, Canal Alliance here in San Rafael. And you can give us the update for East Marin. Okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is a real honor to be talking to all of you here. I always say I'm a first-generation immigrant, but also I'm a first-generation American. And I know I'm confusing to some people, but my son came once and told me, Dad, I'm a first-generation American. So what that makes me? 0? So after that, I decided, you know what? I'm a U.S. citizen. I vote, I pay taxes, I contribute to this community. I'm claiming I'm a first-generation American since then. Election day changed the lives of all of us. And it was, Maria described exactly the same feeling the entire immigrant community is having, not just here in the county, but across the entire country. Fear. And I always like to recognize that that's right now, while we are talking, there are families that are being separated. Injustice, inhumane policies are breaking our communities. And I want just to start recognizing that that's where we live. But also, I would like to give some context. It's not that with this new administration, suddenly the immigrant community is suffering, is being separated. With the last 8 years with Obama administration, millions of people were deported. So we have been in this battle for a long time. Now, it's a different tone, it's a different policies, more inhumane policies. And that has created more fear in these communities. But I want just to give that context because it's not that suddenly right now we are busy trying to do what we do. Our kids in the canal, 2007, parents went to bring the kids to the school. When they were leaving, ICE was waiting outside for them. The kids, after the school was done, the parents were not there to receive them. They were being deported. So we have been seeing this pain before, and now is worse. For Canal Alliance, what that translated is that election day, it really put more pressure in our capacity to respond to what the community needed. And what they needed, it was information. They really needed a legal advice. They needed a partner that can help them understand, how can I protect my family? And let me tell you, going to communities to tell parents, these are the documents that you need to have in place in case you get separated from your kids. I want just for a moment, I do practice a lot of self-reflection, and I want you to put yourself with your kids in front and have that conversation at dinner table and say, we need to fill out this paper because tomorrow we might be separated. We do that every single day, educating the community, and that's not fair. As Maria mentioned, the immigrant community, and let's be clear, that's another misperception. Not everyone is undocumented. We have a big segment of the population that have documentation. And still, the suffering. Because now, even doing everything that you're supposed to do and have a green card, that's not enough. And that's exactly what this administration is doing. It changed the tone. It's not a clear criteria about who is priority. And suddenly, everyone who is an immigrant is a priority. So for Canal Alliance, we decided to do what we have not done before. We need to go with the communities. We saw Novato and West Marin areas, they don't have access, easy access to legal representation. When I went to West Marin, Remember meeting with Socorro and many other members there. And so people up the hill, I think that's the description. People up the hill, they have more access to services than us. And it was very interesting to see that perspective when we are like 1 hour away, right? So it really was educational for me to see Canal Alliance had to do something different. We cannot keep asking people to come to Canal Alliance. This time, Canal Alliance has to go where people are, and that's what we did. We launched a legal mobile team with the support from Marin Community Foundation. It's starting actually October. We have a legal team that's going to be going to Novato, partnering with Novato Youth Center and Marine Human Needs, and with West Marine. And we're going to bring this legal counsel to make available for the community. The other thing that we did is it was no time for us to be in panic because everybody was trying to figure out what it's going to do. So we have 2 big waves coming to our end. One of them is all the help that people want to offer us. Hey, I want to volunteer, I want to do for you, I want to do a lot of things. That was amazing. But we had to reshape the resources to be able to manage that amount of help. And the other one was the demand for services. People really need to have access to information. So we were organizing ourselves to manage those 2 things. Now, being an immigrant, it really helped me to be able to react, but without losing perspective about that I'm leading an organization. Canal Alliance has been serving for 35 years the immigrant community. I'm the 3rd executive director, and in 10 days, it's going to be my first year as an executive in this position. So I was able to keep peace and a balance to respond to what's happening for one reason. In all countries, we lived what United States is living right now. The concept of having foreign governments messing with your democracies and your elections, hey. We had that. Having dictators or people in power, that we not even elect them. They don't even represent us. I spent half of my life, high school and college, on the street protesting. We talk about corruption. Well, Latin America is a lot of politicians are corrupt. That's true. But when we talk about corruption, somehow we forget there is a 2-party transaction. We have the tendency just to talk about who is receiving the money. But we don't talk about the corporations from this country and from other developed countries that go and support that. We don't talk about fair trade agreements and the impact that has in our economies. We don't talk about climate change and how that is affecting remote cities in Central America. There is no water for farming. What they had to do. Again, another exercise for you to think about. What would you do if Marin County and United States suddenly stop being the country it is, the country of opportunities, the safe place to raise your kids, and somehow become a very violent place? The likelihood for your kid to come back from the park or from the store is 50-50 between being killed or raped, being alive to the house. There's no opportunities. Suddenly, it's not safe to be here anymore. And our friends from the border make it impossible for you to apply for an asylum visa. In fact, it's impossible to do that. They have embassies there that you can go and pay $350 to try to get an appointment for them to tell you no. So what would you do? I don't know what would you do. I tell you what I will do for my kids. I will do whatever it takes to bring my kids to safe. And that's what I did. I was lucky. My wife was born in Marin County. We met in Ecuador. She was a tourist. And we fell in love. I tried, believe me, I tried multiple times to overcome the crisis that Ecuador was living. We lost all the money. 2 million people had to leave the country because Ecuadorian banks stole the money from our accounts. Guess what? Guess where that money went? US banks. And guess where the people that were responsible for creating that crisis in my country are living with asylum now? In this country, is sponsored by the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. So it's very hard to talk about immigration and why we are here when we don't understand the responsibility that we have to create those migration trends. You know, people come and tell me, hey, why is people coming over here? It really doesn't take too much to learn from history. All I can tell you, what happened in Latin America, what happened in my country, and despite the dark times that we live and that we're living now, we're going to find light at the end of the tunnel. So there is hope. Thank you.
Chief. We'll leave the last seat for the last speaker. So, Maria, you want to scoot down? And Omar. So our next speaker, we actually also go way back, although we didn't know it till tonight. I went to Buxer High School, which is in Santa Clara, California, and you were police chief in Santa Clara.
Police captain.
Police captain.
Yes.
And then you're police chief. You're the 16th police chief here in San Rafael.
Yes.
And a lot of us in this room were really thrilled because you were the first woman police chief in San Rafael. I see you everywhere. It's in your DNA to be out there with the community. I see you in our schools, and not just you, I see your force. They are out there talking to people, going to the workshops at Canal Alliance and other parts of San Rafael. And I know that you're watching what's going on and looking, and you know that 25% of the residents in San Rafael depend on you for their safety. So I want to have us all give you a big welcome, Chief Diana Bishop.
Thank you very much. It's really an honor to be up here with the two of these folks, and then with Jose. I just met you, but I do a lot of work with Jose and Omar, so it's really nice being here. I'm sitting there thinking, oh gosh, they're really good speakers. What am I going to do? But I'll do my best. So I've been the chief here. This is my 6th year, and if you had asked me when I first got the job, what would be maybe your biggest, I think, legacy or most important thing you work on when you're the chief of police in San Rafael, and I'll tell you what it is. It is immigration, and I'll tell you why. Because, I mean, look at my outfit. So if any of us are driving down the street and someone dressed like me is in back of you on a police motorcycle or in a car, we get nervous. I do. I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I do? I'm going a little fast, but I mean, it's daunting. So imagine people who perhaps aren't documented and are not trustful of the police because of where they're from or just in general, and what responsibility I have as the leader of my department to get the information out to my officers that then they know this, that we don't care about immigration status, we don't care about where you're from, we care about what you're doing at the time. So the message that, and this didn't start with just me as the police chief. San Rafael's been, I think, on the leading edge of a lot of realistic law enforcement. We're not a safe community if everyone doesn't feel safe calling us for any reason. And my officers don't ask where someone's from, figure out if they're documented or not. It doesn't matter. All that matters is you're calling us because you need help. And when you call us and you need help, we come and help you. If we come to a situation and someone's a witness and they're not willing to talk to us because they're afraid that we are going to call ICE or whomever, then we are a less safe community. So I'm very proud of the city of San Rafael. Well before I got here, had an immigration statement that basically said many of the things that I just said. And when the AB 54 thing first came out and the city was wrestling with what do we do, and the day after the election, I believe, Omar, Canal Alliance, and I kind of partnered up and did a Facebook Live thing. I'm like, what is that? Because I'm old and I don't do that Facebook thing. But apparently people watch it. So we did a statement basically standing together and saying, regardless of who is leading this country, we here are not doing anything differently. And so the city, I said, you know, why am I doing this? I'm not the mayor, I'm not the council members, I'm not the city manager, but it took me a while to get it. I represent law enforcement. I represent some people. They don't make a distinction between the federal government and state government, local government. So me being I guess, the voice of the city, and not the policies, but what's in our heart for how we feel about 25% of our population is an honor and a very important task. And I just, it's wonderful to be able to know that my department, and we're not perfect, but I think we're pretty darn good, that we don't care where you're from. We just care, hey, did you go through that stop sign? Are you the victim of something? Can we get, you know, your statement? Can we help you? We just want to help people. It's pretty simple stuff. We are public servants, and we work for everyone. I'd like to say we are everyone's police department. So we're not asking, we're not calling ICE about anything. That's someone else's job. We have far too many things to do anyway in Santa Fe. It's a very busy police department in a very busy city. I'm not sure where everyone's from, and if I insult any other city or town in Marin, this is what I'm going to say. I say, and just take it for what it's worth, Santa Fe is the only real place, real city in Marin. What I mean by that is we have a little bit of everything. And it makes it, and perversely, it's very fun for me. I'm not just like, okay, what are we going to do today? I'm in Tiburon. Mike Cronin used to be the chief in Santa Fe, and he's like, I think I'll go take a break. I'll be the chief in Tiburon. So he is, and if he was here, I'd say it in front of him. But we have everything from homelessness to gangs to now a big part of my days is dealing with or thinking about immigration stuff. We had an event that happened today in town, and that had to do with some arrests that were made in the Canal neighborhood. And it had nothing to do with immigration, but the folks who were the suspects were Latino. So I was like, okay, how is the community going to feel if they see a bunch of cops doing some stuff? So I called Omar right after it was done, and I said, just to let you know, this happened. It wasn't an immigration thing, but you might get some calls because there's a bunch of people dressed like police officers out in the canal. They actually were police officers out in the canal, you know, knocking on doors and maybe breaking down doors. But that's a great partnership that we can have that, because I want him to have information so the community calls him and he has the information. He can allay their fears. Say it had nothing to do with ICE, but rather it was a big drug thing that the Marin County Major Crimes Task Force was working on. So its partnerships are huge and communication is huge. We have been doing a lot of stuff that I think gives us credit in our bank with the immigrant community. For example, and Omar was part of it. We just had, in the spring, we had our first ever Spanish language Citizens Police Academy. So if you've ever been, a lot of police departments have a Citizens Police Academy. It's usually 10 weeks long. You go for 4 hours once a week and you learn about everything we do. You go to the firing range, you drive you don't get to drive the car. If anyone drove the car, talk to me later, because you weren't supposed to drive the car. But we had a part of the community that maybe wasn't feeling good about even coming to the police department to do that, and we started doing it right as this 45th president was being inaugurated. I'm like, no one is going to come. They're not going to trust us. Jose helped me. Omar helped me. We had people coming the last day still trying to get in. We had like 25 people, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience for everyone that was in it, and it showed we're just people. We're here for you. It was fantastic. Omar, you got an A in the class. I think you did. Yeah. We do some events out of the Canal Alliance. My folks go out and help with the food pantry and giving out food. I played soccer really poorly one day at an event at Dominican. I still can't walk. It was in June, and so there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that we're doing that I would have never thought that a police department does with any part of the community. Because when I first started 32 years ago, it was pretty much we're the police and you're not. I mean, that sounds silly, but it's true. We were in our own little world, and but we didn't get it. We didn't get it that we work for you and we are you. And that's what I try to instill in everyone we hire, that if you have a good heart and you do the right thing for everyone that we come in contact with, then you can be on my team forever. And if you can't do that, then you hit the road and you go work somewhere else. But it's a challenging time we're in, but I'm really honored and excited to be in a position where I can make a positive influence on certainly the immigrants in our community and everyone in the community. So thank you for listening.
Okay. You know, I heard you speak to the Wednesday morning dialogue group when you said how much fun it was to speak to a lot of women. So I hope you felt the calmness here in this room as well. Yeah. But can you sneak on through here? Okay. Do you want to speak? Sit down while you speak? No, I can stand up. Okay. Our next speaker started out as a trial attorney, came to the county of Marin at the turn of the century, been public defender since 2010, and like the chief, I've seen you at the same forums, the same conversations, the same presentations, talking about what people need to know once they get caught up. And I thought this was amazing when I read your bio. Founder of ALMA. ALMA in Espanol means soul, right? ALMA also stands for the Association, who knew, of Latino Marin Attorneys. So thank you so much. And Jose Barredo.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Sometimes you are given sort of little things that cross your path that make your day. And today I happen to have read a really wonderful little one-page thing called Optimism in a Time of Uncertainty. And it really was one of the most positive things I had heard. I was raised by optimistic people. I was raised by people who actually believed that people could make themselves happier, better, and be a part of a community. And I have worked in Los Angeles County, I've worked in San Diego County, and I grew up in Martinez, California, a small little town in the East Bay that really taught me a lot about community. And I think as a public defender, one of the things that I shared with my boss, Joe Spaeth, who brought me from San Diego into Marin County, was this notion of being community-oriented defenders. What does that mean, to be a community-oriented defenders? And I think what it really meant was that many of the answers and many of the solutions we were going to get were not going to come in the adversarial punching of the courtroom. In fact, they were going to come from things that we could do before that, realities that we could take care of. And that paradigm of trying to do before the worst happens was really the essence of that optimism that really blossomed in some of the work that we've done over the last 16 years since I've been here in Marin County. We've seen drug courts, we've seen therapeutic courts, we've seen probation take on a really active role in behavior change, in wall of change ceremonies, honoring people who are able to make their way out of the criminal justice system. All of those things were really, really important. But I also realized when I got to Marin County that I guess I was brought here for a reason. And one of the first things that I dealt with was, within weeks of being here, I don't know if you recall this, but there was a big push to try to have a workers' day center here in Marin County. There was this notion of trying to see, is there a way that we could do something with that issue of seeing a lot of the day workers, along the streets? Was there a more orderly way to handle it? And Mike Cronin was involved in that, and he and I spoke about it. And we spoke about the difficulty of the reality of trying to get something happening. And to be honest with you, one of the things that we saw was within the community itself, there was a lot of animosity among different groups. And so it was very hard to sort of see that certain things were going to happen. And so the idea just kind of died on the vine. And yet at the same time, I learned a tremendous amount about this community. And as a public defender, we took back that information. I took it back to the office to really say, how is it that we can help some of the folks that we need to help? And some of that really involved the issue of immigration. Quite frankly, most of our clients that are Spanish-speaking face immigration issues. And as public defenders, one of the things that we have to do is we have to take action. In the end, there is this space where you have to do your job. You have to do the job that you're entitled to do, because you're going to be facing prejudice. You're going to be facing people that don't want to help your clients. But it's really the lawyering sort of thing. And oftentimes, it's getting information. Is your client undocumented? Does your client have immigration consequences? How do we take care of those things? And for years, from the 1990s onward, we were fighting this battle in the criminal justice system. How is it that we get this information? How is it that we do it? And for the most part, there was these glimpses of optimism. And every time we had these little points of optimism, something else would happen. For example, Lori is a district attorney and has been one for many years, and knows that there was a time where we had a state judge could actually nullify a deportation, a judicial review, and saying, no, this person's really a good, decent person. The defense attorneys have presented information, hardworking person. This was just a blip in their life history. I'm going to judicially take away that deportation. And so it gave us hope. But then little by little, every one of those things was starting to just get closed up. Xenophobia started to hit. We started seeing the draconian sentencing laws that we're only now starting to address. But they oftentimes basically swept up a lot of the people of color and many of the immigrants within our community. As a public defender, and as some of the ways that we can work as lawyers, it really is a notion of knowing your rights. And some of you I saw at community events where we talked about knowing your rights. How, if you see and you know somebody is undocumented and they come to you, what is it that you do? How is it that you work with these folks? And a lot of times you have to be the public defender in those instances. You do refer them to Omar. You do refer them to other people. But you also are able to do some of the things that we've done collaboratively to really basically say, look, there are people here in this community that are going to help you do the things that you need to get done. The work that I do with Chief Bishop, the work that we do with the Sheriff's Department. There's a rocky road because it's a legal thing, whether it's the Trust Act, which mandates how jails should handle people that are brought into the jail and are charged with certain types of crime, and if they're to be released. We're still going back and forth with that, trying to get more information. It's the reality of the legal system. And now SB 54, again, it's what is it that it's going to do? To be honest with you, SB 54 basically has compromised to a Marin County solution. If you look at SB 54, you're going to see that much of what's been done to amend the statute is pretty much what's being done in Marin County. If you see some of the work that's been done on bail probation reform in terms of AB 109, it's the Marin solution. And the main reason is because we have a collaborative sense of justice here. And I say that with a tremendous amount of pride. I say it with the pride that includes Chief Bishop, Omar, all our community partners, probation, the court system. There's this notion that there's this place in the center table called justice, and each one of us is trying to make sure we get there. And that, I think, is one of the most important things that goes on here. But I will tell you that in terms of the fear factor, it's very real. I leave you with this. Not only do we represent people that are charged with crimes, most of them misdemeanors and sort of low-level sort of felonies, but we also have a thriving mentoring program in the Public Defender's Office. And to sit down and talk to children who are doing incredibly well, who have been here their whole lives, and are really at the top of their class, and incredibly beautiful human beings, and to see them scared. I had a conversation with one this summer, and there was a part of me that felt, and I don't mean any disrespect when I say this because I know the balance of the analogy may not be as strong, but I gotta tell you, it reminded me of somebody who was scared that they had to wear a yellow star. That they were scared. They were scared to really say who it is. And how is it that I protect myself? And to sit down and look at this child and say, have you and your family done everything you're supposed to do in order to ensure this. And this little girl, without breaking an eye, say, yes, my aunt's going to take us if anything happens. We've already signed the guardianship papers. We've done this, we've done that, we've done this, we've done that. That's what it looks like. What it looks like is a community under siege. What it looks like is children becoming adults at a rate that they're not expecting. And some children are giving up. And one of the great things that Canal Alliance is doing, Marin Community Foundation, which heard us out and funded very quickly some of the responses that we're getting, and God bless the people there, and they continue. I will tell you that if you know any child who has a DACA renewal, Marin Community Foundation is giving free stipends to cover all of those costs. Please let any one of those people know. In order, if they say, oh, I'm not going to renew it, I don't have the money, $495, it will be covered. We need to make sure that everybody knows it. October 5th. As a lawyer, I'm sorry, but I have to tell you these deadlines. October 5th. And so, in the end, one of the things that we have to do as lawyers is make sure that everybody is lawyered up. That is to say that they know their rights. I tell you, if you have any concern about anybody that you know, you can call Omar, or you can call the Marin County Public Defenders and ask to speak to Jose. All right? Peace. Love you.
Questions? Question cards? We have a couple of questions. We have questions. Okay, we have two right here, and we have a microphone on the table, and I'll ask you to share the mic. Okay, well, let's take this. This is a good one. Is ICE active in Marin? I think all four of you could take a short stab at that one.
So, is ICE active in Marin? Yes, they are. We don't work with them in Marin under normal circumstances, and we haven't in my recent memory. But I have something in my dispatch center where if ICE calls any police department or any law enforcement agency, if they're going into another jurisdiction, they courtesy call and they say, hey, like Novato PD, just to let you know we're coming to do A, B, and C on this street. We don't need you, but we're just letting you know as a courtesy. So that happens all the time. So what I asked my dispatch center to do was, if ICE calls with that same sentence, is to text me and my two captains right away so I know what's happening. I know that they're in town. We're not helping. They're not asking for assistance, but I know they're in town. And I will tell you that they usually come at 4 in the morning because I get texts at 4 in the morning. I'm not kidding. So since probably January, we've had probably 6 times where they've come in and I've got the text at 4 in the morning. They do whatever they do and then they leave. So for at least San Rafael, those 6 times I know they've been in, and they might have been in town many more times than that I'm unaware of, but they usually let us know. What are they doing for you? I'm sure that they are knocking on someone's door before they are going to work to try to get them in custody to start some type of deportation hearing.
I think this is where you can pass it to Omar or Maria, and they might be able to answer that.
I was just gonna add first to what Chip was sharing about the presence of ICE. That's what I was sharing before. The pain of the immigrant community has been there for a long time. Right? In the last 8 years of Obama administration, we were seeing deportations happening, targeted deportations. I have my own assumption why is that we're not seeing a more aggressive presence of ICE, and I think Chief Bishop really doesn't give enough credit herself about really building the strong community with everyone, protecting everyone, despite of the legal status, race, religion. I think ICE really relies on local enforcement to do what they do. And if they have a community that it has been clear and vocal about, I'm not here to support those efforts, except when it's needed and when the law required. I don't think that is preventing for ICE to come and do what they did in 2007. That was a terrible times, and I'm sure Jose can tell you about that more.
ICE is here every day. Every single day they show up to the jail. Okay? And our sheriff has openly and has written in the IJ that he allows the ICE to come into the jail in the same way that he would allow the FBI to come in or any other group to come in. And one of the reasons they come in very early in the morning is that oftentimes people are arrested between 10 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the morning. You know, a lot of the stuff that goes on, there's a reason a lot of times people on probation are told, don't go out during these hours. A lot of times things happen during those hours. And they get there very early. They do a research of the data logs to determine who is undocumented. With the recent passage in the law, however, inmates do not have to speak to anybody from ICE. And I think since January, only one person has chosen to speak to ICE. Because remember, any statement that's made by a person can be used by ICE in order to create an immigration case. Okay? Do you have documents? Nope, I got a case. You look like a gang member. You ever hang out with gang members? I know some gang members. Oh, now I got a basis to get you out of the country. Those kinds of things are really the resources that happen. But ICE is here every single day. And SB 54 is actually going to allow ICE to go into jails. They're not going to be allowed to have offices, but they're going to allow access, pretty much like what's going on here in Marin County. There are times where the ICE lottery works on behalf of somebody. ICE doesn't pick them up, you know. One of the very difficult situations that is happening now, you know, people were saying, oh, ICE shouldn't be arresting people at their home, at the jail or anything else like that. But sometimes what happens is when people are released, ICE just follows them to their home, not only arrests that individual, they arrest many other people in the home. So you get into this Sophie's Choice reality and saying, what is to be done? So ICE is here every day. The goal really is to make certain that we're aware of how we can help many of the people that potentially may have immigration relief that they may not be sure of. And so that's really the tough part of it. But we aren't seeing some of the things that we saw in 207. And, you know, I don't know why that is. I do know that in Southern California, they're going very, very heavy. In Los Angeles and San Diego, they're arresting people in the courthouses. They're arresting people that are going to court to get restraining orders. They're being incredibly aggressive. And I don't know if that's because of the 100-mile policy that ICE has, but we clearly aren't seeing that same sort of enforcement in Northern California.
Okay, and then Maria from West Marin. Do you see ICE?
We have only really heard, we have a sort of alert system out now in West Marin. We call it our rapid response line. Mostly to also, a lot of rumors start to scare people. Kids don't show up to school because somebody saw someone in a van. And based on that, we have a system that sends out texts and robocalls to say, we've looked into this, we've talked to Jared Huffman's office, we've called Sheriff Pittman, to try to say that this is actually not happening. And then, so we've also, though, had some targeted ICE situations occur where they were going out specifically for one person. But we haven't seen them do the sort of raids that you hear about, no.
Okay, thank you. There was a fact I said when introducing the chief that 25% of the San Rafael population speaks Spanish at home, right? I think that's a statistic. Does not mean they are all immigrants. The children may be all born here. So, but someone asked about that. Not 25% of Marin's population are immigrants, but 25% of San Rafael's population speak another language at home. It's an interesting question here. I hear in my own family, we came to the United States legally. Why can't they? So what are the points that you would make to about families who are here, who did come undocumented, when other people have come here, like my grandparents came here with papers? It was different.
Right.
Course, but.
So I came here in 2002. So I don't have this rich, long history of this country like many of you do. But I believe this country always has been a country of immigrants. And we did this exercise with a lot of the kids in different schools in Marin County. We call it My Immigration Story. And it really is asking kids to go home and interview their parents. Where are you coming from? Or where are your parents coming from? And the kids later on meet with us and we have a conversation. And we facilitate the conversation with the kids and we tell them, okay, what did you find out? And there are some teachers, one more creative than others. You can say, okay, you're gonna bring a dish from the country where your grandparents were or your father to share, or pictures. And we capture the trends and we ask two questions, where are they coming from and why, the reasons why they leave their home country and the reasons why they choose the United States. And we capture and make and classify that as the trends. And then we come in and start sharing the current trends around immigration. Why people are leaving their home countries and why they're coming to the United States. And all the kids saying, oh, that's the same reason why my grandparents left. Violence, war, you mentioned it. So it's right. I mean, that is the history of this country. That's what happened. And I think the immigrant community during all this time has been facing persecution in some way. The fact that we don't want to accept what the contributions that they make to this country and what they represent for this country, I think is inhuman.
I'd like to add something to this. I'm of a mixed, my family was of mixed status. So my father was an American living abroad who fell in love with a Peruvian woman. I was born in Peru. But I always like to say my parents went through a process of having my mother get her papers that was much kinder than the process that we see now. I also want to say that the illegal immigrant in my family was German, escaping World War I. He swam up the Ohio, hid out in Tennessee, married a British woman, and lived in a cabin trying to escape the feds. So I always like to put that in context as well. So this idea that illegal immigration is just one type of person or one community is incorrect. And I do think the policies were less stringent than they are now. And I also think that white supremacy has played a part in this. And though it's hard for me to say, I do think that's true as well, that our countries of color, countries with other religious backgrounds are looked on differently in our policies. And I think that's a reality we have to face.
There's always been the draw to El Norte. I mean, there's always been the draw. Because of work, okay? Because of work. The reality is that many of the folks that came were recruited to come. They were recruited to come and work in the fields. This country sort of accepted that during the Braceto period, during the World War II need for immigrant labor, things of that nature. So El Norte, when they need us and need our ancestors and the people from our home country, it's a whole different story. But then all of a sudden, when peacetime comes, things are going, all of a sudden the xenophobia hits. But the reality is, you go down 4th Street, you go to the kitchens of every single restaurant, and you check, and you'll see. You go and you say, are the gardeners throughout Marin County? And you're going to see. You're going to see that some of the benefits of the standard of living that we have is on the back of immigrants who come to this country for that call of El Norte. Because them making $10 an hour, $12 an hour is a millionaire's wage compared to that $10 a month, $10 every 2 months that they can make in their home country. So anyway, it's the allure. It's the allure, so it's one of those things that we have to be constantly aware of when we say, what share do we have? What share do we have in doing this? Oftentimes we have to look at what it is that the immigrant really represents to this economy and say, okay, it's going on. One of the things that people aren't talking about is that there's less immigration coming in from Mexico now. It's going on the reverse because, in fact, the Mexican economy is thriving. So we're having fewer of the people from Mexico coming, okay? Right now, vegetables and other fruits are rotting in the fields because Americans will not do that work. And by American, I'm not sure what that means. I'm not sure what that means, okay? But I can tell you, if you walked into any high school in the United States and say, I got a job for you, picking lettuce, doing this, I'm not sure there'd be a line for that process, okay? So the reality is that's the thing that we have to look at. When we say, when we ask, I came here legally, all circumstances are very different. And the reality is that, my grandfather in Juarez, right along the border, he says, in the early 1900s through up to the 1950s, there really wasn't any border. You just kind of waved, people let you in, you went back. It really wasn't anything. And so there was this notion that somehow you could freely pass, that there was this understanding that it was a shared economic reality, and everybody kind of knew that everybody was going okay with it. Now, we're looking at it very differently.
I'm good. Are you good? Well, about 6 more minutes. I've got 2 questions left. I think it's an interesting one. A lot of questions. Sorry, we can't get to them all. Can you speak to the use of social media? I think you all use social media, I believe so, to get information to the younger members, and I would say the older members, we're all online, of the community. Let's share what you're doing in that realm.
Sure, we are definitely using a lot of social media to get to our clients, especially because the mobile adoption in the Latino community is very aggressive. A lot of people have access now to smartphones. And what it drives that adoption is the value of family. For us, it's very important to be connected. And we might not have money to pay the rent, but I need to be connected because it helps me go through my day. So people are adopting a lot of the smartphones, and they are in Facebook particularly. So understanding that trend, Canal Alliance decided to use a lot of the Facebook ads to get targeted, to go start targeting people. They potentially meet certain criteria that we decide what that criteria is going to be. And that's what when we were just talking with the chief, how are we going to do this? I said, well, calling the press and making a press release and all that, it will take some time, and maybe one newspaper might show up, and let's just do a Facebook Live event. And that's what we did. But not that night, we have like 12,000 people that already have watched that video. And the chief she didn't know exactly how that's gonna work. She was a star. I just introduced her, and she did. They're still alive, so you can go to Canal Alliance Facebook page. You will find her there. And next day we talked on the phone and said, like, this thing works. I said, why? I said, look, I was walking on Forest Street, and people are looking at me with big smile and said, thank you for the message. And I went to grab my coffee from my regular place, and the woman behind the counter, a Latino woman, thank you so much. It's good to see that you have your back. So it tells you how powerful that is. And so we are using it a lot. Facebook, Twitter. We're not there yet on Instagram, but I know that the chief got inspired, and she opened a Twitter account. So you want to say?
Yes, I have, I think, 200 followers. Woo. But mine is more just silly stuff. But the department we have, San Rafael Police Twitter account, we have 12,000 followers. So we do the gamut of things that we think the public should know. And it's interesting because in Twitter, you could have someone from all over the world looking at your stuff. We just got on Nextdoor. So what that means, if you're on Nextdoor, is we can't read what you say, but we can push out information to actual San Rafael residents rather than the World Wide Web or whatever you call it. But I have a smartphone, and but I will never be on Facebook. I can guarantee you that. And it's just I'm putting my feet in the sand because I'm just stubborn. But we're doing Facebook now. We're doing we tweet. We don't do Instagram. We're just starting to get into the social media a little better because I was such a stick in the mud, and my people were like, please, 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 and I finally got it. So we could do better. But yeah, the Facebook Live thing we did with Omar, I had one of my officers, Tom Sabito, translate my remarks into Spanish, and he did that. And seriously, the next day I'm at Royal Ground, and Elizabeth, and Alex, who make my coffee every day, saw it and thanked me for my words, and it was really powerful. So that was all on Omar. So thank you for that.
To your right.
We also use Facebook, and in fact, we did one of our attorneys did something with Lucia on Canal Alliance, and you can go watch those things. One of the things that we also did was we created an immigrant toolkit. If you go to the Marin County Public Defender webpage, you're going to see resources, and the resources oftentimes are brought from the Immigrant Legal Resource Center from San Francisco. We put up a lot of DACA information there. We basically, anything that is going to be able to give people information, accurate and reliable information on immigration issues, we have that. So you can go there and do that. At the very top of the county webpage, which hosts our webpage, you can just click to have the material translated into a ton of languages. So it can be translated to, the differing languages available, and so that way we're also doing it. But one of the things that we did very recently, maybe about 3 or 4 months ago, that really was important was we went to one of the local schools where the school called us and said, these kids don't get it. They don't get that they can get into trouble and it could impact their families with regard to the situation. So we actually did a teach-in with the students, and their parents were invited. And it turned out to be a really wonderful, not scared straight so much as scared right, really being told. And after the event happened, we got this huge poster, thank you, from all these kids, understanding it. And then at the end of the school year, I got this picture from one of the teachers that said, you really changed these 2 kids' lives. These kids were going down there. And so a lot of the work that we're able to do in a community such as Marin County is we're able to do that one-on-one. And so, oftentimes social media sort of works, but it actually oftentimes is the entryway to this human conversation that the chief speaks about, that Omar speaks about, and that we're able to touch kids about. And that, I think, is really the goal of social media.
Okay, and then Maria.
Well, our situation is a little more complicated in the sense that we have a lack of connectivity out in West Marin. It's a big problem. So we are pretty low-fi and low-tech. I do use Facebook to get out to the young people for the most part who can be at school or in different places to access the Wi-Fi. We use KWMR. It's our lifeline. We still use the flyers in the school backpacks. We really have to hit it from different angles. And so, like I said, we have this, we have robocalls that go out. We find that the robocalls are really helpful, but they lead to that human connection and to that contact and to the call back into the conversation. I find that especially important now, where there's so much fear and they need the connection. People want the connection to say, okay, I trust you, therefore I'll come. And that's been, our world. We would love to be, I think, more connected through social media, but it's difficult. It's difficult out there.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you to the 4. I'm not done with you yet, so just hang on. I'm going to ask you one last question, but I want to point out, I think she's left. Congressman Huffman's aide, Christina? No. Michelle came by, and she dropped off a stack of papers. This is probably one of the papers that that families are asked to fill out. But she left it in case you want to pick one up. If you have anybody who works for you who's an immigrant, they should fill this out. Or they may have a family member who needs to fill it out. And we have them at the front here on the way out. You can pick it up, and then Vita's got some in her hand there too. And this is a form that, if someone is detained, can be sent to Congressman Huffman, and he has authorization to research and find out what's going on. So check it out, and maybe not the person you're thinking of, but they may know somebody who could benefit from filling out this form and having it on file. So I'm just going to let you all have one last word. SB 54, I haven't heard that it's been signed, but let's say it's signed. And I'd like you just each to say one word. What comes to mind when you think of SB 54 becoming law? Maria.
Well, I go back to hope, and I go back to the firewall that our state is helping to provide. I'm proud of Javier Becerra for his hard work on this.
Okay, I'm going to cut you off because we're running out.
Okay.
Hope, got that. Okay, Omar.
Not perfect, but
Alignment.
Alignment. All right. Chief.
Oh, no, I just had a great word and I've lost it. Business as usual for us.
Okay.
Another tool.
Another tool. All right. Let's thank them. We have just a few minutes, so you can stay here. You don't have to move. We have just a few minutes, and we'll have our last words with our president.
I'm totally overwhelmed. This is absolutely, I think, the most powerful event that we've had since I've been a member of the League of Women Voters for the last 4 or 5 years. So thank you all very much. Jose, I'm so delighted that you were able to hobble out right after your surgery. It's just amazing. I don't have a lot to say other than to thank you all for coming out tonight. If you are renewing your dues, you can leave your check at the registration table on the way out. If you would like to join us, you can leave your check on the registration table on your way out. I would like to thank Lori Nardone, where are you, Lori, and her team for putting this all together. I heard the food was fabulous. I didn't get time to eat any of it. I would like to thank CMCM for videotaping us tonight. And this evening will be available as soon as they get it edited, and they are really, really busy these days with candidate debates, so be patient. Thanks again to all of you as our guest speakers. Would like to remind you that our members meeting for October, which was on your table, is a week from Monday, so we're hustling along here. The topic for the members meeting is critical thinking. A little off base for what we usually do, but I think incredibly important for us. It came out of the climate change group, but it's also important for immigration and transportation and everything else that we do as the league. So come to the members meeting. It's all right here. And yes, Joan. Nancy's got it. The debate schedule is out front if you live in any of the communities that are having debates. I'm going to give Nancy a second to pull up Paul Hawken. And I believe that is one that is on Eventbrite. If you want to get a ticket, it's free. October is going to be a really, really, really busy month. Find it? 6 to 9. 6 to 9 p.m. And last but not least, I would ask, please, please, everybody right now, take off your name tag and leave it out on the front because we can retrieve the holders and reuse them. So again, thank you for coming. Have a super wonderful evening. Safe trip home.